Peace. What's the Science Universal family? On another glorious day of the science of living mathematics. What is today's mathematics? God for the seventh day of the month. And what is the seventh letter? G. G in the supreme alphabet is God. Just like last cycle, because God is God. But let's break this down. What is God? Many around the world will have different types of connections with their God or gods. What Supreme Math and Alphabet speak on is the true and living God, not a mysterious being, not a being that requires faith or belief, but this true and living God is throughout you. Something that must be manifested from you through self-realization of who you truly are and your true potential. Right? Because God is the supreme being. Supreme is the highest level, right? Hierarchy wise. Being, as we build about, is to exist. So the highest form of existence is you. As always, in the past, they said, you can never lie to God. You can never hide anything that you're doing to God. And that's because you are aware of what you've been doing. You know what I'm saying? So how do we break this down? You see, I usually build about, the higher self and the lower self. Right, and as we were mentally dead, living in the dead world, there's many times where we're not using our higher function, our higher logic function and all that, and we just always base everything on our passions. And it's important that we realize that you cannot let your body control you. You control your body. You tell it what to do. You know what I mean? Not the other way around. And with that comes purpose of being and finally existing as who you are, truly. You're meant to be, per se. And this path that leads to God, to this higher awareness of self, and I said this before, it's a very lonely process because nobody else can see it but you. Only those who truly live out a righteous way of life and are self-aware, let's say enough to the point where they know who they are, will recognize someone else as that. I see me in you. And that's where connection starts to form. That's where you will hear us say my A alike, my B alike, my C alike. A alike is Allah alike. He's Allah like me. B, he exists like me. Things that he does is like me. And C alike, obviously we see things alike. So you hear a lot of those terms when you're around those who walk and talk it, those who live, this culture of teaching knowledge and wisdom to the human families of the planet Earth. And it's our duty. It's not a job. It is our duty, because we have to revive as many as we can, going back to how man fell from grace, fell from the sky down, per se. That grace was the grace of a higher functioning mind. And coming down to earth and the earthly plane, dealing with the lower self, because you got the heavens above and you got the earthly realm. And it's, metaphorically speaking, about your mind, per se, and as you know, we always have a habit of pointing up here for the mind, as many confuse the brain to being the mind, or thinking that the brain houses the mind. When I first came into the knowledge, I thought that as well, because it is the brain that processes all this information. So it was like I was picturing, the mind being somewhere and you kind of just steering the brain or so, But it's not like that, because who you are is throughout you. It is you, your mind, That's who you are. It's not like, no, my mind is right here, you could take that piece out and, switch. No, it doesn't work like that. Being God and achieving this, you're going to go through a lot of trials and tribulations, when you have to take a step back. The first people that notice is your family, people that are close to you. And at first they might not see the growth and development, because only you can see, because a lot of stuff is internal. We're used to living in a society where everything is external, and I have to show you my progress by doing this. It's like, no, I don't. My progress is within me, and how I feel about self, how I exist with just me, being comfortable with me, being comfortable with my duty of being able to educate, and not seeing it like, damn, I gotta do this. No, when you come to that realization, you will see the need to go ahead and build with those that are asking questions, those that want to learn. We're not forcing anything, and it is a lonely path, but yet you will meet those that are on a similar path to a higher being, which is God, within themselves, throughout themselves, and friendships build through that, because you can talk about the struggles you go through, whether you have a religious family and they kind of shun you, label you, the black sheep and whatnot, you're going to go to hell and blah, blah. And what are you going to teach your kids and whatnot? These are some of the things that a lot of us go through, and we understood what this path was leading us to. And realistically speaking, people outside of me had no idea, because they didn't bother to study. They didn't bother to look at what I was doing. They just thought it was something different than what they were comfortable doing. It burst their bubble of reality, because I was going against the grain, from what the rest of my family was doing. Then over time they learned to respect it, and I don't get bothered by it anymore. Some of them still say, oh, your religion. So I don't deal with religion, and it's a hard thing for people to deprogram from their minds. It's just like, you have to be part of something. You have to believe in something. It doesn't matter what it is, as long as you believe, and you place yourself somewhere else when it's not even that, because you can see obviously a lot of wars and arguments come from different religious beliefs and whatnot, but when you don't deal with nothing, it's like, what? It's like a third faction builds, and you have to Just deal with it if you want to still be around your family, and not sitting there and forcing them to stop eating swine, which is pork, you know. But you learn to just educate those that are asking questions, those who are curious, you know. And yeah, because once you get that knowledge, you got this fire in you. You want to sit there. It's like, God, don't do this, don't do that. Stop eating swine. You know, this is bad for you. This is bad. Read the ingredients. And it's like, you know, people are just, I don't want to hear that. Because they're not ready for that information. They are okay in their bubble. You understand? And you become a nuisance when you're striving to burst their bubble. The reality, they formulated this based on things that they believed and thought it was okay, and they're comfortable with it, and that's okay. That's their reality, regardless to how attached you are, were, or going to be with this person. That is their reality. You know, some just kind of step away from their families and just don't deal with their families because of how they are, you know, because it can get negative. And this is what I'm saying, that is, it's not a walk in the park per se, because one, you got to deal with the demons within self. You have to first admit that there are issues that need to be fixed within you, and having to deal with those can bring up a lot of, let's say, deep-rooted trauma. And it's all part of the growing process. You know what I mean? It's all part of the struggle. It's all part of the growth and development. Again, being able to deal with that, because if you can successfully manage these things, then you can help somebody else by giving them the example that you use for self. And it kind of gives them a little platform on how they could do it. You know what I mean? And this is the job of God, is not to say I'm your God, because I'm not. I'm not your God, and if I had the power, I wouldn't want to be. Why? If I can, you can. Do your own thing, right? In the sense of, you get what you need to be by yourself. I can show you what I've learned along the way. I can give you examples of what helped me, what I did. But you ultimately have to take that, because you are the sole controller. If you're only waiting for me, then you're waiting for Mystery God to bring you food. You know? And what I mean by that is that you're sitting there, let's say, praying, and then by no means is disrespect to anybody that deals with it, but looking at the reality of you sitting at home and you just pray for food and food, clothing, and shelter. That's not going to come unless you make some moves, right? And I've gotten into stuff like that with other people, and not because I initiated, because they said that I'm a bad father because I didn't bring up my son with religion, and that struck a nerve with me, because I strived and went through a lot in my early 20s and my early and mid 20s to get where I'm at with my son. And not that we had, but to maintain that positive relationship that we have to this day. You know, could have taken the easy route and just been a deadbeat, but how can I sit there, look in the mirror and say, I'm God, I'm the supreme being, but yet I can't go through this? You know what I mean? And it just bothered me, because it's like, hey, you grow up with religion and you want to teach your kids religion. Obviously, you teach them what you think is best. But for you to sit there and tell me I'm a bad parent, not because I beat my son or put him in a headlock. No, just I'm a bad parent because I didn't bring up my son with religion. I told my son about religion. I told him about religion. It's like, pay attention, because the people that you care about deal with religion. And you want to be aware what religion is. You know, study what is it that they're into. What is it that makes them so interested in religion? What makes them, let's say, go to church every Sunday, depending on what branch of, let's say, Christianity or whatever. If you got friends that are Muslim, Hindu, anything, you know, Buddhist, Taoist, all that. You want to understand where they come from, because that's what it comes down to, is understanding understood. And we never build about that because no month has 33 days, but understanding understood is being able to understand how somebody else sees something, you know, how they arrive to that understanding. And I build about this. And that's the only way that you can properly deal with growth and development, is to be able to understand where somebody came from and why they make the decisions that they do. Not so much the end result when you're engaging in a conversation. And it's all part about being God, because God is not sitting in a throne the way it's described in certain religions, just there basking in his glory, with angels telling him how dope he is. On every level, they're just saying it even more and more. And if you look at that, the whole science behind that, how heaven has 7 layers, and how it's described, obviously, in certain branches of religion, of Christianity. Each layer has angels singing how dope God is. But each layer that goes higher, it's with more fervor and you man, and it increases. And then you have Dante's Dante's Inferno, but I forget the name of the person who did it. It's like the Divine Comedy or so, and talking about I think it's the 9 layers of hell, and how each one has dealing with a different vice. And if you look at that, it's dealing with frequency, right? Heaven is blue and everything else, and it goes up and it gets brighter. You're dealing with gamma rays. If you look at just even in the light spectrum, right? Waves that are more energetic and hotter start to burn blue and purple. Things that are cooler and have a lower frequency and slower start going towards the red. And you have kind of the slow bass kind of talk like this. And then you have the happy, we're talking like this very high. It's all dealing with the gamma. It's dealing with the frequencies, within self. You know what I'm saying? That energy that's building up every time, the energetic of talking about how dope you are, is you being confident within self. And then once you reach the most high, which is just a bright light, and they say, that you can never look directly at God because it can blind you. So if you look at how these descriptions is talking about the sun, right? You can't look directly in the sun because it will blind you. And as God, if you really think about it, was this being that a lot of people believe in, why wouldn't he want to be seen? Why hide? Because he's so powerful. So if he had the power of all things, then he can dim his light so you can see him. Why hide? So again, you can make all types of excuses, but we look at the natural things around us, right? Because this is how it doesn't matter what anybody says. You shape your reality based on things that you experienced, right? So these frequencies that is explained, let's say, it's really, again, talking about self when you're high in spirits, and then when you're feeling low. I noticed for me, since I was young, I've always noticed certain songs will be played, and it's like this, the I don't know what it is, not the bass, but it's just the beat overall. The song is just played at a very low frequency, and it makes me feel very negative, in the sense of, I'm not gonna say it's demonic music or anything like that, but it's those type of frequencies. If the best way I can describe it, I would immediately take it off. And as I've gotten older, I've become more aware of these things. So whenever I hear songs like that, shut it off. And if you see what I'm talking about, the theme here about frequencies within self, and how the energies that you're dealing with self, whether you're dealing with a heaven, are you living in heaven or are you living in hell? See, these things are not real places that you can visit after you die. Heaven and hell is lived out now. You know, when you're dealing with your higher self on the higher frequencies and you're vibrating at a higher frequency, let's say, and you're happy and all these positive thoughts, let's say you're in heaven. You know what I mean? Dealing with depression and all these things, it's like you sink low within self. It's like almost like a black hole, you're sinking within. Same thing with somebody who's, let's say, afraid or not confident enough. When they sit, you can see it's kind of like they go in, and you can see it in the body language, but it's almost like you can visualize it with your third eye. You can see them kind of drawing in, just, you know what I mean? And you see that. So this idea about God is not like you're gonna be flying, you can make things, you do whatever you want. I mean, if you look at it, there's laws, and there's laws is the will of Allah, which is God. And as ruler, you have to abide by your own rules. You can't sit there and break these rules. This is how you show how supreme you are, that you're able to make these rules, and you are the supreme example of how to live this correctly. You know what I mean? This is why freedom is not the ability to do whatever the hell you want. It's just to be not restrained by others against your will. It's for you to be free, let's say, to exist in your natural state. That is God. You know what I mean? And it might hit people differently what I'm going to build about, but being God is not a thing that there's a sex of God or goddess. There's no such thing. And we as man and woman have our roles to play. And it is the duty of man to lead by example. This is a primal function, and that has been warped throughout thousands of years, society, culture, and people's beliefs and whatnot. But besides all that, if you remove that, it is a primal duty of man that we have, and it is our calling. And many can realize that in time and deal with that, others no. You know, while the woman embodies the earth, because what is God without earth, without life? What is that? You know, again, the importance of woman. You know, remove all the modern negative connotations like, oh, I'm not, I belong to man, and blah blah, all this. It is the importance of both our duties. What are we men without our women? You know what I mean? Like, that doesn't make any sense. And what is our women without men? Really think about it. Remove your negative experiences of what you want. You want to sit there and talk about how men suck and all this crap. Maybe the men that you deal with suck. And for those men that always say female suckers, maybe the women that you deal with. You got to look at yourself why you keep attracting those people that suck. Right? So, our duty, our responsibility, our expectations to always deal with a higher self, with a higher function. That is our job. And if you look at how fundamentally we look at things, how we process things as men, is to look at the bigger picture. And women always focus on the details, you know, generally speaking. You know, we make sure that just the house is fine, and that's it. That's all we care about. You know, the woman brings it life, man. You know, if it was for us, we would have the couch in the same spot for like 50 years, and we would not change that. You know, some of us who have more influence with our mothers and sisters, let's say, we always can decorate and change things around because that's fine. You know, remember, because with order, It's just being able to do things in an orderly fashion, because if you keep everything the same always, it becomes stagnant. Changing things just for the sake of changing is also stagnation, because it doesn't lead to anywhere. So having that where the woman will bring life to the house, and that's fire, that's fly, man. Just to be able to see that, and it's not something, again, that you guys are lesser. That's not what it is. And regardless to what anybody tells you, you guys are not lesser. We're not lesser. We're both equal in that aspect of how yesterday we were talking about equality. Let's say both flesh and blood. We just have different functions of how we deal with. The ancient symbol of a woman is an upside down pyramid, representing coming from the heavens or the cosmic down to the earthly plane, where she manages the earthly plane, takes care of the earthly plane. And the ancient symbol of man is a pyramid, meaning coming from the earthly plane to the cosmic. And you put those together and it forms a six-pointed star, which nowadays they call it the Star of David. You know what I mean? But these symbols are ancient, showing the union of that. And again, man, woman, and child. Knowledge, wisdom, understanding. 1, 2, 3, sun, moon, and star. But dealing with God is our duty as who we are. We have a responsibility to be that guiding light for others. There's no way around it. And once you come to that realization, there's nothing that you can shut it off. It's like, I'm going to be mad ignorant today, I'm going to go to the club. Nah, it's not like that. You can't shut it off. And if, I used to be God, then you never was. You thought you were. Your ego was telling you. Your boys might have told you that. But there's nothing I was like, I'm coming back and I'm dealing. Nah. How do you lose self and then come back? So things that you wanted to do ignorantly, you will go ahead and do it and you come back? Nah, it doesn't work like that. Right? This is not a switch. This is why the path is hard, because you have to deal with these things and you have to be able to eliminate all these bad habits that you had as somebody who was mentally dead. Somebody who always dealt with things within their, let's say, their lower self. Once you unlearn what you have learned in order to learn properly, it's obvious, by the way, a quote from Yoda, and that's how my educator taught me, and I took that very literal, letting go of all these, let's say, religious habits I had when I was coming into the knowledge of myself. That now I don't have to deal with these things now at my age, let's say 23 years with the knowledge of myself. I don't have to have these vices. It's like, I want to go do this, I want to be ignorant. No, I don't have to, because I made sure I took care of that at a very early stage in my growth and development. So seek the higher self within you. That doesn't mean, like I said, that the duty of man is to be God or is God. That doesn't mean you guys lack a higher function within self. You guys have a supreme being within you, your highest state of being. You know what I'm saying? It's all levels to it. And that's how I break it down like that, because it's a very difficult conversation to be having about God and whatnot, and what that means for man and woman, and it's not like we're the higher function, you guys are the lower function. Nah, you guys have a higher function too, because you guys are as important as us. There's no way around it, because we need both of us to bring children to this world. And that's all there's to it. You know what I'm saying? So with that, people, enjoy the rest of this glorious day. Peace, universal family. Not like this. Not like this. Two fingers together to form union, unity.